guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. I am joined tonight with Amy Vilela. She is Nevada congressional candidate, District 4, and she is basically a victim turned activist. And I'm so honored to have her here. She's making waves with her story and her platform. So thank you so much for joining us, Amy. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started, why don't you just share, for people who don't know, share a little bit of your story and what inspired you to get to this point?
Well, first I'd like to thank everyone that we have following my campaign. We just passed 1,000 followers on Facebook. And so I want to thank everyone for being supportive of our campaign and welcome all those who just joined. We're a true grassroots campaign, and we will be sustained by everyone that is joining us, like people like you. So I wanted to take that moment to thank everyone for their support. My activism began in the wake of my daughter's death. And like so many other Americans, we don't realize what our healthcare system and the deep inadequacies that are in our healthcare system until we are personally faced with a healthcare crisis ourselves. My daughter was a 22-year-old young, vibrant woman full of energy, compassion, and love. And she was really funny. And she was in school to be an RN. She worked 2 jobs as a CNA on minimum wage in order to put herself through college. She had driven out from Kansas City to Las Vegas, a 22-hour drive, on an injured knee. She was African American with sickle cell trait. She had PCOS and was on birth control. All of these things are risk factors for a blood clot. Shalyn went to the ER not knowing that this is what she had, with a red swollen leg. And any person that's in the medical field will know probably within those first few words that that's something that would need to be tested for and ruled out. She was in excruciating pain, and the first phone call I yielded from her, I was down out of town on a business trip. She was telling me, "Mommy, what's our insurance?" They're asking me for insurance. So they had her calling, and my husband calling in the waiting room, the insurance company, and we're military. Most people don't realize the military does not cover our children between the ages of 21 and 23 unless they are actively in school. And as she had just enrolled and moved, she did not qualify. So she told them she did not have insurance. This sealed my daughter's fate. They told her, "You can leave now. There's the door. It's going to be very expensive. It won't cost you anything if you leave now." Shalyn said, "No, there's something really wrong with my leg." She continued to assert that she wanted to stay and have medical treatment. When she got in the back, I got another phone call from her. This one was very different. This one, she was crying. She was saying, "Mommy, they're not helping me." And to be honest, I was a little bit taken back. And I thought, "Well, Shalyn, you must not be telling them what's wrong." She's like, "Mommy, I'm begging them for an MRI and something to treat the pain." She had 8 out of 10 pain. They didn't even give her a Tylenol. They did the bare minimal assessment that they had to do to try to cover themselves for EMTALA. And they told my daughter specifically, "Go get insurance and see a specialist. We're not a doctor's office." I had to do what no parent should have to do. And I had to hold my daughter. As she died in my arms from a pulmonary embolism, a completely preventable thing that a side bed ultrasound, a very inexpensive test, could have saved her life. And I remember right before she passed away, my sister's an RN, so we already knew something was up. The blood clot was from her knee all the way up to her groin. They were giving her massive doses of blood thinner, and it wasn't breaking the clot. She was just hemorrhaging. And we knew at that point that there had been a disservice to Shalyn and that EMTALA had been broken. And I whispered in her ear as she took her last breath that you will not have died in vain, and I will be your voice. So I have never looked back since then. I have been a fierce advocate. Nothing I do will save my daughter, but I will not close my eyes after seeing the injustice that people in this country are facing. I will not close them. I will continue to fight. And I have taken this fight now all the way to a congressional race. I will not back down. And it's just not for my family anymore. It's for all of us. We all deserve the opportunity to have health care, food on our table, roof over our head, a decent life. This is what the American dream was supposed to be built on. And I won't stop fighting for it.
That's so powerful. It's just incredible. When you're faced with tragedy, you have two options. You can just, just become completely defeated and cry in bed, or you can do what you've done. And even if you did the other thing, it's totally excusable. It's totally understandable, but you're using that grief and you're turning it into something that is just so incredibly powerful.
I have to be, honest about my journey, because I don't want other parents who've lost a child to think that I just overnight, transformed into this powerhouse. I did spend a year in bed, and that was an incredibly tough year. I didn't want to come out of my room because the world was continuing and my daughter wasn't. And I would sit many of a day holding her urn and just crying. So for anyone who's suffering, know that it's a journey, but hang in there. Hang in there. I have learned how to turn this powerful emotion of grief into action. And I have taken that action, and I had to make a decision. I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to do something about it. And I had many other progressives and many other leaders that helped me transform. One of them being Nina Turner. I met her at one of my first introductions into the single payer community. And I remember her telling me, you have to dig deep, dig really deep, and you got to fight back. And so I really took those words to heart, but it is a process. And there are gifts and mercies. Shalyn did give me a gift with her parting, and there are mercies to it. And by extension, she's giving America a gift, hopefully. And, through me, I'm being her voice. And hopefully we'll save just one life. It was worth it.
Absolutely. I heard about you when I was watching the Humanist Report. Are you familiar with the video? Yeah, they showed the video of you telling your story to the current congressional guy who's in office in District 4, and not a very nice person. And now I just found out it was Mother's Day of all days, that you shared that story with this man who literally campaigned on the fact that he was a progressive and for healthcare for all. And then he looked you in the eye and told you, no, he's not going to sign the Medicare for all. What's that?
He went farther than that. He did. Yeah, I really sat in disbelief because, and that's one of the things that, we're having to make sure that we really touch on in this campaign, because he presents himself as a progressive. And, and I thought myself going in there that, this was someone that would be someone easy to talk to and just let him know that, hey, it's time. You need to come on board with the rest of your progressive caucus, and you need to listen to your constituents. And you know what? Shalyn was your constituent. This happened in your district, and she was marginalized. This should be something that you're concerned about, at the very least, on the marginalization and EMTALA violations. But, and when he came back and he said that, he goes, well, I'm too busy fighting for the ACA. And mind you, that's what I had been doing. And I was fighting against the repeal of the ACA because I feel like we need to move forward, not backwards. So I would fight, and then I was telling them we need to be going forward to ensure that everyone has health care in this country. Not just affordable, but they have it. And so And then he went on to saying he was busy in North Korea. And then it was, I didn't have to be here today. I heard your story. I could have been out enjoying my weekend. And that was an eye opener for me. And
he said, don't call me, call the Republicans.
Yes.
What do you mean, don't call you? You are our representative.
Right.
I was blown away. And then, I kept thinking of the
Democratic Party right now with a lot of members that they think that just to resist is sufficient and they're able to get by and keep their donors happy. But it has to go beyond that. We can't just resist and we can't just do the bare minimum. We have to be true to what the party was supposed to stand for, and what we should be doing as human beings with humanity and with us having feeling and empathy for our fellow human beings. We have to be fighting. We have to be on the forefront. We have to be pushing. I mean, how many times has John Conyers introduced Medicare for all? This is a process, and we need people who are going to be out there and be warriors in Congress that are going to be putting these bills forth. And even though it doesn't have any chance right now of passing, that's how it starts. That's how it begins. That's how movements are made. And we have very few, unfortunately, in Congress right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, when he said, to him, it was an either or. And it can't be that. When, you have someone like Senator Sanders who's organizing healthcare rallies across the country to save the ACA, but he's also writing an entire bill for Medicare for all.
Right.
He's the epitome of someone who does both. This guy is not that important. He thinks he's so much more important than he is. All he has to do is take 2 nanoseconds and sign that paper.
Exactly. And I think just beyond that, I think he's beholden to his donors. So
absolutely.
This is, if it's not a secret. You can go to opensecrets.org. I mean, he's finally got Goldman Sachs on. So, he's waking his way into, and very quickly. I mean, we're talking about a year into office. And I think a lot of our public servants forget that they're public servants, not public celebrities. They're here to serve the people and make sure that their constituents are not dying needlessly. And people have heard me say this over, but I cannot say this enough. When it's someone that you love, when it's someone you care about, one needless death is one too many. We should be striving to having no needless deaths in this country. Not just saying, well, it's only 30,000 people a year dying. That's acceptable. But, 50,000 a year, that's not. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. I will never agree with that, ever. So that is, when I really made a decision about running, it was, that was a big decision for me. I'm only 2 years out from my daughter's passing, and, I have a family, but we all have a duty to each other and to our community. And when you see evil and you do nothing about it, and I'm paraphrasing this, but as Martin Luther King would say, you become an accomplice. And I cannot do that. And so, to come full circle to your question, that's what made me run for Congress.
And that's basically, excuse my language, but the biggest fuck you. You're not going to hold up your end of the bargain. Well, I'm just going to primary your ass. It's that easy. What do you think his response was when he found out you were actually going to run against him?
I'm sure he was surprised. I think that he feels very safe. I feel like he has the establishment, backing him right now. And he feels very safe in his position. He has the support of Reid. I'm sure he feels very safe. But what I know, and what a lot of politicians are not in touch with, is I know I have the American people behind me. The ones who are living this struggle, whether it's healthcare, whether it's poverty, whether it's being discriminated against because of racial issues or LGBTQ issues. I know I have the American people behind me. And that is a force. And, I feel very confident myself that, I will have the American people behind me on Election Day. Absolutely.
And I digress a little, but you guys, anyone who's watching, please share this. please share the video we're talking about of Amy schooling Congressman Rubin and explaining her story and the way he reacted. The more that gets out, the more successful her campaign is going to be, because people need to learn that that is someone without empathy, and that is someone you do not want, lack of a better term, in charge of your area. What is Nevada open or closed for voting?
Closed.
I always forget. Oh, it is closed. Okay. So what?
Also.
What's that?
You're a caucus state also.
Oh, right, you are, because I remember the shenanigans with the chair throwing and all that. Yeah. So what are you appealing to? Pretty much all people, regardless if they're Democrats, and just trying to work with people to, hopefully just get them to switch parties for their votes? Or how are you deciding who your targets are, lack of a better term?
My target is I am reaching across. I think that we've learned something from this last election, is that people are willing, they are moved by people who discuss the issues. I'm not interested in discussing party politics as much as I am in discussing the issues. And I feel that my platform will appeal to the majority of Americans, regardless of what party they're in. If we are able to get away from the rhetoric. And I really feel that rhetoric is purposefully maintained throughout the American public, so that we aren't talking about the things that matter, like how our representatives are voting, whether they're Democrat or Republican. We shouldn't feel safe because we have a Democratic, representative. They all need to be held to the same standard. So, our answer to him was, to my opponent, to Ruben Keenan, was, we don't have to call. We already calling, Senator Heller, which is the Republican senator. But we're also calling you. You don't get a free card because you have a D behind your name. That isn't how it works. So, and I have no shame in holding, I don't care what your party is, a representative, I have no shame in holding them responsible for their actions in Congress and their actions and how they're treating their constituents. And that's the way it should be.
Absolutely. The party used to be just something we had on our voter registration card. And now it's like such this, this label that is like, well, are they a Democrat? I really don't care. Like, the guy who's in there now is supposedly a Democrat. He actually is more like a Republican. So yeah, you can't go by that.
No.
How do you
waking up? People are waking up. They are. And they're not. And that is going to be their undoing, is that they're not scared. They're not looking. They are doing status quo, and they feel comfortable. The American people are waking up. There comes a point when the population has enough, and we have had enough.
Right. And I do also think that there is a huge still epidemic of cognitive dissonance in certain people as well. And how do you deal with that? If you're speaking to someone and they say, well, things aren't the best as they could be, but like, how do you approach that?
I talk to a lot of people in a lot of different communities, and some of them are even from marginalized communities. And they are so scared. Even some unions that I've spoken to are scared to rock the boat because they're afraid. They are afraid of what the Democratic Party will do to them if they don't go along or if they speak up. To me, that speaks mountains to where this party is at. We shouldn't be afraid of going to our representatives and speaking truth and telling what's happening in our everyday experiences and demanding better and more just bills and legislation for our communities and for ourselves and our families. So when someone starts talking to me like that, I'm like, you can have all that, and you can have someone who is not sold out, who is not beholden to their donors, and will go far and beyond just keeping the status quo and doing the fear-mongering tactics that they're doing right now. We can be fighting for better. We don't have to accept what we're given now. We can see the future be a brighter place, a more just place. But it's not going to happen unless we get people out to vote, unless we get them caring about who's running in their district, and not just with what's behind their D and who they have their picture taken with and who's popular. Learn who is running, look them up, meet with them, give them the hard questions. And, I always tell people, don't be satisfied with generalities and platitudes. If they're not specific, there's a reason, and you need to know why. Saying that I believe healthcare is a right, but, I know there's people running on that now that are sitting members of Congress that have not co-sponsored Medicare for all. That needs to be called out. We cannot say, well, because he's better than the other person in, we're going to accept less. That cannot be acceptable. And we, the people, have to start speaking up and fighting back and really holding them accountable. They're not celebrities. That's what people need to get out of their head. They are public servants. They work for us. We don't owe them anything except for to tell them what our needs are and have them represent their constituents in a fair and just manner.
Agreed. And a lot of people forget the fact that right now we have the power. They need to answer to us or they're going to get voted out. And right. We can bring that up to them. Look, we all want this. If you don't oblige, cool, but we're going to vote someone in who does. So exactly. We have that leverage. We need to use it. What do you think that Congress should be focused on right now? Like, what do you think is the most pressing thing that they should be focused on?
Oh, so many. Yeah. The core problem of all of the issues is money in politics. That is the crux of the problem. Our representatives, and I hear people talking about, they're open to talk about it when it's the Republicans, but they're not so likely to talk about it when it's Democrats. They need to open their eyes. Most of our representatives are right now being corrupted by money in politics. We need to call it out. We need change. We need to have grassroots funded campaigns. I'd love to see publicly funded campaigns. We need to have open primaries. We need to be able to make it to where the people have a real voice, and that we're not having, different parties deciding who's going to win a primary before we even begin, and not giving us very little choices. And we can't have the people that look like us, live in similar experiences like us, running for office because it's too expensive. We need to have the corrupter removed from our government, and that is money.
Absolutely. That you are spot on. And the comments are showing you have a lot of people agreeing with you, a lot of people cheering you on. How can we move forward with the huge divide within the progressive movement? Not just like Dem enter, Dem exit, but like it's just, if you voted for so-and-so, you did this, and like, how can we move on? How can we bring that solidarity that we hope for?
We need to start talking about the issues, and we need to understand that in this current system, we have to work to get people in office that are going to make it plausible to have other parties, plausible to have, other ideas and people running. And, we need to find that common ground. Like, until we get people in office that can make these changes, we need to be concentrated on who's going to represent the issues that are important to our movement. That is the important thing, not what's behind our name. We have to be careful that we're not just grouping people into groups right now. There is a really big progressive movement. We need to understand that the progressives that are running, and once you check out how they're running and what they're running for and make sure that they're authentic, you have to understand that we are the 99%. And we have to find whatever means possible that works in our state, in our city, in our district, that's going to make it plausible for us to be able to get elected. Because right now, it's just not a possibility in a lot of states and localities to go any other way but the traditional way. But we need people to hear what we're saying and know that we are trying to get inroads in so we can make true change. That is what we're working for right now.
Absolutely. And I think we saw 2 nights ago, that was pretty phenomenal. We had some wins across the country of lots of Bernie-crats and Greens and, things like that. So it is working, and a lot of it is social media. We learned that we are the media. So definitely.
We need to listen to each other more. I think that if you look at my platform, it would sound very similar to a Green Party platform. It would sound, there are lots of things that, we have to know that we have to be looking at the individuals. And until we can get our system in a place where we can have true and fair elections, we have to do whatever's necessary to get people in office that are going to make that change happen. That is so important.
Totally agree. What is the message you typically give people when they say, I'm defeated, no point in voting? They steal them anyway, especially, look, they're finally starting to admit it. What's the point? How do you convince people that our vote does matter?
We can't give up. We cannot give up. There are changes being made. Just look what just happened this week. There are inroads being made in districts we never would have thought was a possibility. We have to continue to fight, I need the American people to help make sure that I'm not ignored. I need to have people helping my campaign amplify that message and get it out there. I need volunteers. I need people who can knock on the doors. You can't stop a message if we're knocking on your door. I can go out there and tell them, it's going to take all of us together. We have to be in this together. You'll notice on my website, I say we're all in this together. And that's what I mean by that. I have no chance if I do not have the American people who are outside the party insiders helping rise up the campaign and volunteering and donating and making sure that I do have a way to fight against the system. And that goes for every district. That goes for every state. Mm-hmm. Whoever is out there running, they've got to fight. It is David and Goliath. Sorry. It is that. And so, they need the help. They need help. And this is a time we all have to come together, put aside our differences, stop worrying about the infighting. We have to come together because 2018 is the first step towards 2020. It's the first step. We won't have all of the seats that we need, but come 2020, if we make a real change in 2018, we could be there.
Yep, spot on. Absolutely. Who do you look to who inspires you politically?
Well, for the oldest would probably be FDR. I really admire his policies and how he was in touch with the people. I mean, he used to have a weekly radio show where he would describe what he was doing. He did infrastructure, of course, Bernie. And I love, as a female, I think Nina Turner is just one of the most awesome female leaders we have in our time. She is, she puts herself, her heart and soul into it. And she shares her personal side too. And she's a great motivator. So those are people that I really look to immensely. There's many people throughout history that have made great sacrifices. I know when I felt like it was a lot, and there's days when it feels that it's a lot. I think of the tremendous sacrifices that Martin Luther King made. There are a lot of things that people in history have given up in order to make great change. And we all have to do our part.
Absolutely. I was fortunate enough to meet Nina a few times. And the last time I met her husband, and I said, just so you know, I'm a heathen, but she takes my ass to church. Because she kind of does.
They're both sweet as anything, and they're really nice.
Really are. They're amazing. That is who should be the first woman president. But anyway, I digress. Let's see. Are people politically active in your city, like to the point where you see a lot of protests and things like that?
Yeah, so there is a lot of activism in Nevada. I know I have been leading the healthcare fight here in Nevada for quite some time. We had tremendous turnouts. We've had people at almost every town hall. I know right now that DSA members are getting ready here in Nevada to do a knocking on doors campaign to talk to people about Medicare for all. We have a Healthcare Now. We've got a People's Project. We have a lot of different people and organizations. PDA is now starting to form. We have a tremendous support. Also there's a group out here in Nevada for the People. There's so many different organizations working, and they're starting to build huge coalitions. And not to forget, we also have a very large Nevada Progressives Coalition. So we have a lot of people who are very active, who've been fighting this fight, who have been trying to make inroads, and they're all very excited to see all of the progressives. We have a progressive running almost every single race. So we are very excited here in Nevada and hoping we're going to make some really large inroads in the next election.
Awesome. There's a couple people for Real Progressives who reached out to you through instant messaging, and they're like, she's amazing, because you actually would talk to them about MMT. So they were pretty excited, because I don't always have people on who, know what it is and stuff like that, as I didn't a few months ago. So they were super excited about that. So can you just very quickly just explain why you're open to it and something like that?
Well, full disclosure that, my background, I am a CFO, so I understand economics very well. I understand that we have not been on, gold for a while. I understand that, but I'm not an expert at MMT yet. I'm getting there. But I am very open, and it makes economic sense. And definitely am very interested in supporting, this movement going forward. I know that it's a priority of the government. That is what drives spending. Not that we have to have a balanced budget or that we don't have the money. It's about priorities. And so it is so important that we have people who are making sure those priorities are being put forth first.
That is an extremely good point. Sometimes when they say we don't have money, it really is just them saying, I just don't care. I'm
Medicare for all. I mean, we don't have money. Yes, we do, because let's take a look at how much we're spending already and how much it would help our economy with small businesses, and I'll speak a little bit from a businesswoman's aspect here. If we had Medicare for all, small companies would pay. I take a small case study I did for about 50, employees. They could save almost $200,000 a year with the slight increase in Medicare tax, which they're already paying now. And the employees would save all that tremendous money. And they could use that money and put that into, hiring new employees, higher pay, research, equipment. Let's think and then they'd be able to compete also with larger size companies, because they're no longer competing on their Cadillac insurance plan. Now they're competing based on their company culture and who they are as a company. They could attract nice, better talent and be able to really compete. And it would help take down the huge corporations. It would make the average middle-class American able to be an entrepreneur and actually truly compete. And then if we talk about the savings And again, this is, to me, the number one important thing about it is that it is the humane thing to do. So I do want to say that. But every argument that they have against it really does not suffice. And our government would save money. They're already paying for our health care right now. To kill my daughter cost $500,000 to the taxpayers. We all paid for Shalyn to die so that a hospital could have a larger profit margin. That is the truth of our healthcare system today.
It's true. I digress a little, but have you ever thought of like a lawsuit or something? Not that that's going to rectify anything, but.
Yes. And I am in a lawsuit, and I won't go really into it, but it is an EMTALA violation. Shalyn, that should not have happened. And most people will respond in my videos, well, this isn't supposed to happen. Yes, I know that. There's a law, yes, but laws are broken. I know it might be shocking to some, but laws are broken in this country, and especially by profit-driven companies. So I am having a lawsuit in the federal courts, mainly because I want them to be afraid of doing this to someone else. Until we get Medicare for all, we have to hold them accountable. And the only thing they understand is money. That's it. They're not upset that my daughter's dead. They're not upstairs in the boardroom fretting over Shalyn's death. They will fret over a large settlement.
That's the damn truth. Yeah, I was looking into that because I work in healthcare and I just can't. I guess maybe because I have a conscience, I couldn't fathom, doing that. So I looked into it and I see there is Emergency Medical and Treatment Labor Act passed in 1986, which for denial of care for lack of ability to pay.
Also, importantly too, it does not allow them to discriminate based on what your citizenship status is. And most important to note, they're coming after EMTALA. You don't hear anybody talking about it. And, that's another thing that's coming down the road. Yes, so EMTALA, yes, it was enacted by Reagan in 1986. And it was meant to be a safeguard. And it has done some good. It's not a horrible bill. The problem is that it doesn't address the profit motive in our healthcare system. And, there was a Supreme Court ruling that, there was an energy company that wanted to do things more in an energy efficient manner. And it wasn't going to bring the same amount of profit for their investors. And actually, the Supreme Court ruled that they had a fiduciary responsibility to their investor, their shareholders, over morality. That is what our hospitals are. They are for-profit, publicly traded entities. They do not have morality. They do not care. And I can tell you as a CFO, I completely understand what goes on in those boardrooms when they're talking about risk management, insurance ratios, and it's not about the patient. And our nurses and our doctors, they're caught up in all of this. There is a huge movement of nurses and doctors who are behind Medicare for all because they want the power back in their hands to treat their patients based on what's wrong with their patients and their skill levels and knowledge, not on what the insurance company is going to pay, not on what management is trying to force them to do and dictating how long their patients can stay or not stay and and understaffing them so they can't give proper care. We can't blame, our nurses and our doctors. We have to blame the engine that's running it. And that is what Medicare for All does. It takes out that profit motive. Then they can go back to self-governing. They can go back to being, in charge of their patients' care and not some, CEO or CFO somewhere up in their offices dictating down. So it's so important that this bill gets pushed forward. And it's why a single, a buy-in option isn't sufficient either. We have got to take profit out. I see the Democrats are trying to push that, but they seem to forget, and maybe they haven't ever been on Medicaid. I have for pregnant women and children. I've actually been on assistance. Trying to find a provider that accepts Medicaid is just a task within itself, and the wait times are enormous. That is not the solution. The solution, and it still doesn't take away the cost of what it's costing our government and our citizens. We have to be able to cost control. My husband is in the military, so I'm on TRICARE. And I tell people this little story that, for a couple years, we couldn't go to Walgreens. Why? Because Walgreens would not negotiate the prices on the prescriptions. TRICARE pulled out. Well, guess who's back on TRICARE again? Walgreens. Because they decided that was enough motive for them to give decent pricing. We need to have that kind of bargaining power. And we need to make this country's, this astronomical healthcare costs come back in line with our other, competitive countries that are on the same level of us. It's ridiculous. Sorry, that's just my.
Oh, right on.
It's ridiculous.
I see it every day in my career. I see, these prescriptions that are thousands of dollars, and they're elderly people on Medicare, and they're only filling it once every 90 days, and they're cutting it in half and all this stuff. And why should people have to do that? And then go figure, it actually gives you more doctor bills because you're not taking your prescriptions as you're supposed to. So, and I mean, it's just this whole cyclical thing that there's not a lot of common sense in government. I've learned that, there's not a lot of rationale behind things. As we the people, we can
now it's got money.
Well, this is true. It's hard for me to start thinking like them, but I'm really trying. But it's you just have to pretend that you have you're not an empath. You have no emotion, and just okay, I'm getting money for this. That's all that matters. But the sad thing is, a lot of these people who are voting for these things and voting against Medicare for all, they are parents. They are, what people shouldn't wait till something happens to themselves and before they start to care, essentially.
I don't know that's a lack of care, but it's a lack of, it's naivety and not being engaged. A lot of people have disengaged, and we need to be working to get them engaged again. They trust their representatives. And in a lot of instances, the representatives, I'm sorry, they're straight up lying to their constituents. It's disgusting, and it is so immoral. And that, is the crux of the issue. I know in our state, we only have one. We have 3 Democratic Congress people. We only have one who has co-sponsored HR 676. That's Dina Titus. 1 out of 3. That's it. And our Congresswoman is also, we have one senator who is also a Democrat, and she is not backing Bernie's bill either. So, and I don't care who writes it. If it's people can say whatever they want. We need to get off that. John Conyers has been doing this for a long time. They should be worried about their constituents. And we have a lot of people in Nevada who are hurting. We have an entire top portion of Nevada District 4, which I'm running for Congress for, that doesn't have any options anymore on the ACA, who don't have any options. We have, the vet clinics closing down. We have a lot of issues with healthcare in Nevada, and we rank I think it's 51st now of patient healthcare outcomes. And don't even get me started on where we're at with mental illness. And we have Democratic representatives not co-sponsoring this. Blows my mind. I don't, and I know why. And you just look at who's donating. And, I tell people, don't look at the PACs as a whole. They sound like great PACs. Research the PACs and see who's donating into them. It's the insurance companies. It's the insurance lobbyists. Go and do your research, and you'll know who your representative is bought by.
Absolutely. And when you do that, you might think, oh, wow, yeah, you know what, this is a good idea, but I took $1 million from them. They're not going to like it, so I can't do it. I mean, people were saying, when Byrne brought out that bill, people were like, oh my God, 15 people co-sponsored. That's not good. 15 is not a good number. That's not enough.
It's the first time that it does show. We have to give people a little bit of hope. It does show we're moving them. Whether it's, I don't know how authentic all of those co-sponsors are, but we are moving them. They are paying attention and noticing, and we need to make them notice more. We need to make them notice in 2018. We need to have another wave. If you do not co-sponsor this, to me, I run, my platform has many things. Medicare for All is a cornerstone of one of them, because I think that that's just a basic bare necessity. And if you can't get on board with providing people health care, and you'd rather see people die than to have an economically sound healthcare system, you should not be in office. And that's problematic, and tells what type of leader you're going to be. I have many different things on my platform, and I'm just always surprised at, the number of people we have out there, that representatives that are not doing any of these things, and their constituents are not woke. We need to get out and start make a message for 2018. We are coming for any of the corporatists or anyone who's beholden to donors. We're coming for you.
I gotta say, I've done about 20 interviews. This has never happened, but there are people in the chat who are volunteering to come to Nevada to canvass for you, and there's somebody who's in New Hampshire who wants to phone bank for you. So it's pretty phenomenal.
I need all the help I can get. So they can come to, amyforthepeople.com, volunteer, like, share, donate, whatever you can do. We are all in this together, and I'm not stopping until, we get progress. And I'm really hoping we are able to get a huge turnout across the nation. It's so important that we have real progressives getting into office, and people who are willing to speak up. And as you can tell, I have no problem with that.
Good. Is anybody else running besides you and Ruben?
Not as a Dem, not in that district.
Oh, okay.
We do have some people that are running independent. There is another great person that Rodney Smith. He's also running, and he's running as an independent. So there are some other people running, and then of course we have the Republicans are gearing up, and they're going to be putting a lot of money into this. And this is a flip district. So, but I feel like we have a real advantage, and a lot of people know my story, know who I am, and they know that I'm authentic. I didn't get into this because I wanted to be a career politician. That was never my intention. I cannot sit back and watch this happen to people anymore. And I can't tell you how many people, I've had people when I was still working, calling up my office and asking for me. They're looking me up on LinkedIn and finding out where I'm working, because they're so desperate to have someone hear them and help them and figure out how to navigate the system until things get better. And, I'm available for anyone who needs help. I will always be there, but we need to fight. It is a battle.
It is. And that's such a beautiful thing that these, the 99% people who have never been in politics in their life are just coming out, and saying, screw it, I'm going to run, and just being, inspired and doing that. Those are the kind of people we want to vote for. We don't want someone who, is in politics for wrong reasons. We want people who are going to make a change. And you're an activist. And those are the best kind of people to, create legislation and things like that. You said that you're also passionate about environmental issues?
Yes, I am. We need to be working on for a number of reasons. But, right now, our world is heading into, an environmental catastrophe. We in this country, we should be leading the charge in developing innovations in clean energy. We should be putting money and grants and putting initiatives out there to, get people and companies interested in developing this technology. We're behind now. We should be the leaders in this, on the forefront. And I know this is a huge topic, even in Nevada. We have a lot of public lands. We have a lot of issues. We also have a lot of resources that we could be using to, head this off into clean energy. This is definitely something I'm passionate about. And, again, everything's intersectional. So if we don't have a clean environment, and usually the places that are most affected are the ones that are most disadvantaged and don't have the money for healthcare. And, we have a sicker population. We have more healthcare concerns. Everything can be interlocked and intertwined. They're all intersectional. And we have to have someone who's willing to fight on all of those fronts. We cannot talk about one type of injustice or one, problem in this nation without really having someone who's well-rounded on all of the different topics, so that we have someone fighting on all the different levels, because they, in some way or another, you'll find a way that they are intersectional.
You're right. It is all relative. Everything fits together. So what else, if there's something you want people to take away from this interview, what is your what's your appeal to people? What do you want them to leave here with that lasting impression?
I definitely want people to not give up. There are a lot of us out there right now. I just spent the weekend in DC with incredible other candidates across the nation that we are all grassroots. I mean, I would spend some time with Paula Jean Swearingen. You can't get any more real deal than Paula Jean. And we had a lot of similar backgrounds. Get involved. Don't give up yet. Help us get into office so we can make changes that make, it possible for people to be able to vote, to get voting rights, to get money out of politics. We have to start now. We need you involved. We need you to be, liking us, donating to us, sharing our pages and our message, amplifying our voice, because the media is going to do a blackout on us. We already know that. It's going to be the people that are going to make the deciding factor of whether or not we're able to be successful in taking back some of these seats for progressives in 2018. And we saw some hope coming out of this last election just this week. It can happen. It can happen. So we just need the people to get involved and to help support us. You can follow me, like I gave you my website earlier, Amy, 4, thepeople.com. I'm also pretty active on Twitter at Amy, 4, the people. And, I would love to hear from people and hear suggestions or ideas. Right now we are developing, a really comprehensive platform, but we're always open to hear from people and what's, their biggest concerns, because that's what matters. It matters what the people are. So
right on. And you guys vote in June, correct?
Yes, June 12th.
June 12th. Okay. And is there a debate scheduled? Are they going to agree to debate?
I don't know. I'd hate to jinx it, but I'd probably say I'd probably not.
Yeah.
I would love
to
debate Ruben Kihuen. Oh, yeah. Let's debate. Because, when he comes back and the stuff he's been saying, I'm just like, wow, I can't wait to be in a debate, because I have something that he doesn't have, and that's a lot of experience, not only in business and finance, but I have a family. I've had loss. I've been on food stamps. I've been on WIC. I've been on Medicaid for pregnant women and children. I have been through a lot in my life that I can relate to people, and I understand deeply the struggles that are facing a large part of the American population. And it's not easy. It's not easy with the way the system is set up now. So, I'm willing. I'll go on record saying I'm willing.
Maybe I'll hit him up. I'll see what he says. I'll have him come on. That would be amazing.
It would.
It would be hard to keep my support for you under wraps, but is there anything else you want to say?
No, I just really, pay attention to who's running in your areas and your districts. Go online tonight to the progressives that you're backing. You can donate $27 to them. This money will help them get printed materials, get people out in the field, get access to van when they're able. You know, this is so needed right now, because we have to work a lot harder, you know, to get to that same point and be ready for when the primaries start. And that's something people need to understand. It's not too early. Right now is when we're having to go out and we're having to knock on every door. We're having to go out there because they're not giving access to van to a lot of the progressives who are running. They're shutting us out. So we need to be out there, and we need people supporting us now so that we can start getting our name out there, getting our face out there, getting to town halls, and starting to get ready to make history in 2018. We're ready.
Hell yeah. Right on. Of course, you are an inspiration. I am so glad that you joined us tonight. You're amazing. I wish you all the best. And thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to be speaking at an Our Revolution event tomorrow that I'm going to be filming. And I'm also going to be live streaming an activist event Sunday, and then live streaming a Bernie Rokana and Stephanie Kelton symposium on Monday. So lots of cool things coming up. But thank you guys so much for watching. And again, thank you so much, Amy, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks.